Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I am just using my phone for these more like relaxed, laid back videos where I'm not actually doing my makeup. I prefer to use my phone. I'm not sure why, but I do. By the title you can probably see, but today's video is going to be my top 5 tips / advice for the keto diet. The first thing I want to talk about is the term high fat. Because keto is coined as a high-fat, low-carb diet. Now, when keto was initially like created or founded, or however you want to say that, it was to help children with epilepsy. Now, typically when you were doing ketosis, or you want to be in ketosis, for medical reasons, you do want to eat high fat. Now, most people that I know, and most people probably watching this, if you're interested in keto, you probably want to do it for weight loss. Now, when you're doing keto for weight loss, the high fat is going to be referring to the fat on your body, because when you are in a state of ketosis, what that means is that your body is now burning fat for fuel instead of glucose. Now, if you have a lot of excess fat on your body, you don't need to be adding a lot of dietary fat, because you're going to be using the fat on your body and burning that. Now, it's not to say that we don't eat meats that have fat in them, cheese has fat, that's fine. But a lot of people make the mistake of adding lots of extra fat because they think, oh, the more fat I eat, the more in ketosis I'll be, which is not true. Being in ketosis is a lack of carbs. That's how you get there, not how much fat you're eating. So like adding butter to extra things, doing bulletproof coffee, those things are not necessary. It's just added fat and added calories that you don't need. So yeah, the high fat part of keto, if you're doing it for weight loss, is going to be from your body. So that's the first tip I have, I guess you should say. Because a lot of times what happens is people who focus on the high fat, they're neglecting their protein. And chances are, like, if they are losing weight, they're also losing muscle mass. And I'll kind of get more into that later. And these that I listed, they're not in any particular order. It's just like what came to mind when I sat down and wrote some notes. And I might even do a part 2 into this because I thought of a few more things, but I'm going to keep it at 5 for this video. The next thing I want to talk about is electrolytes. Magnesium, sodium, potassium. I'm going to insert a graphic here that shows you when you're doing keto, like how much of those you need. Now, on a standard American diet, you want to limit your sodium, but that's not the case with keto. If you've ever heard the term keto flu, that happens like when you first start keto, or if you have a really high or a really big electrolyte imbalance. Because keto is kind of like a diuretic, your body gets depleted of glucose and the insulin levels are super low. So your body's going to get rid of extra water, because like the standard American diet, you tend to hold water. When you're doing keto, it tends to flush your body. Which is why a lot of people lose a significant amount of weight in the beginning, because that's water weight. But while it's doing that, and sorry, I'm like shaking my camera. While it's doing that and it's releasing all that water, it's also getting rid of those electrolytes that you need. Now, we don't personally, at least I don't, Alex used to, I don't personally supplement potassium like with a pill or anything, because that could be dangerous with your heart. That's something you want to talk to your doctor about. But there are potassium rich foods. I'm gonna be honest and say that potassium is not something that I hit very often, but I know spinach, I believe, nuts, avocados. I'll try to find a list and insert that here of more high potassium foods that are keto, because obviously you think of potassium, the first thing you think of is bananas. But the next one is sodium. Is a huge thing that you need to pay attention to when doing keto. And it feels very counterintuitive. It goes against what we were taught. Everything, you're taught that, you want to keep your sodium low, and that's not the case. I keep saying, Now, simply adding extra salt to your foods is not enough. I believe that you need 5,000 to 7,000 milligrams of sodium a day on keto. And that is going to prevent things like the keto flu from feeling run down, brain fog. If you hit a stall, and FYI, a stall is no changes on the scale, no changes in measurements for 6 weeks or more. and I will get more into the measurements later. But a couple ways, good ways to get sodium in: chicken broth, bone broth, Soleil water, which is, I'll link that down below, like an article on how you make that and the benefits of it. I don't know all the benefits, but I know it contains a shit ton of sodium. But you take pink Himalayan salt and you fill like a glass jar, like a fourth of the way with that, and then you fill the rest of it with water. And you want to cover it with like a plastic lid, and you let it sit overnight, and it absorbs like the minerals and the nutrients and the sodium, whatever. Anyways, and I put like a tablespoon of that in my coffee every day. Pickle juice is also a very good way to get sodium in. The third tip or advice that I have is that calories matter. One of the biggest frustrations for me is people who think they can just eat keto foods and be fine. If you're doing keto for medical reasons and you're not trying to lose weight, that's a different story. Now, if you're doing it for weight loss, calories matter. It's physics. You need to burn more than you're taking in. And tracking is a huge thing. And I know there's a lot of people who, they say, oh, I don't keep track of calories. I don't track my food. That's cool. But there's a couple things that are probably gonna happen. One, you're probably not getting enough protein because you're not tracking it. So you're gonna lose muscle. Two, eventually you're gonna hit a stall because you're gonna be consuming more than you realize. Three, you're probably consuming more fat than you realize because you're not, like I said, you're not tracking any of this. I remember I saw someone who was like, well, I eat 4,000 calories a day and I'm losing weight. And it's like, yeah, that's possible if you're also burning more than 4,000 calories a day. It's just, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But I recommend using some sort of app to measure your food. A lot of people use MyFitnessPal. I did in the beginning, and then I found Chronometer, which is what Alex and I use. I find that one you can customize things. It seems to give more detail, and that does track net carbs. MyFitnessPal does not, which you can just subtract the fiber from your carbs. Some people use Carb Manager, and those are like the three main ones I think to use to track calories and macros. Now, to get your personal macros, the amount of calories you need to lose weight, things like that, one of the groups I'm in, and Alex and I both recommend the Keto Gains calculator, which I will also link down below in the description box. And that's going to make sure that you're getting enough protein, because people seem to be scared of protein for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why. But that's a whole other video we'll get into another time. My fourth piece of advice, and this is something I'm very guilty of, and I kind of feel like this is aimed towards me, is to avoid cheating, specifically in the beginning. And this is just a personal thing for me. There's like not any research necessarily, I'm sure there is, but I'm just giving this piece of advice for me personally, for a couple reasons. One, when you cheat in the beginning, like you haven't gotten into the habit or you haven't gotten used to this way of eating. So when you're cheating and eating the way you used to, you're going to be less likely to stick to keto or to stick to whatever diet you're doing. And for me, like if I were to cheat, it's really hard for me to get back on keto, because the cravings come back and it becomes a shit show, especially for me personally. I know not everyone's like that. There are some people who can eat one donut and then they're just fine. They go right back onto it. No thoughts, like it's not hard for them. It's not really like that for me. And this past weekend, I did cheat. It was WrestleMania weekend and I felt like shit for like 3 days afterwards, which really just shows me that my body just feels better on keto. My depression is a little better. I mean, obviously it's not cured, but I do feel more mental clarity. I sleep better. But anyways, going back to the cheating thing, I'm getting off on a tangent. You get more of the benefits of being in ketosis if you stick to it. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, going back to the third one, which was calories that I forgot, is that ketosis does not equal weight loss. You can be in ketosis, you're eating below 20 grams of carbs a day, and this is me going back to people who don't keep track of calories or don't count calories. Like I said, you can be eating under the 20 grams of carbs, because there are people who track just carbs, and that's fine. But like for any diet, a calorie deficit is what's going to make you lose weight. Being in ketosis alone does not make you lose weight, because you can be in ketosis and consuming, you know, 4,000 calories, but you're not in a deficit. So your body might be running and be in a state of ketosis, but it's not going to be burning anything extra because you're still eating too many calories. So here's my 2 cents on that. And the 5th tip or advice I have is to trust the process. And I mean this with any weight loss regimen or diet or way of eating that you're doing, is to trust the process. I highly recommend from the get-go doing measurements with a tape measure, because the scale is not always going to be your friend. I promise you that, because you might go a few weeks and like be doing really great and you step on the scale and maybe you've gained a pound, or you've only lost this amount of weight and you were expecting it to be so much more. The number on the scale, 1, is not everything. 2, is not always a good reflection. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. Maybe your body is retaining water for a certain reason. Maybe you're a woman and it's that time of the month. Take measurements, because you can be changing. Your composition might be changing and your weight may not. So you're still losing fat, but maybe you're gaining some muscle, or whatever the case may be. I highly recommend taking measurements. And what I mean by trust the process is, earlier when I mentioned the stall, yeah, people get really frustrated if, you know, in the beginning, the first week or two, even the first month, they lost tons of weight. You know, I saw someone who lost like 30 pounds in a month or something crazy like that, which is great. But don't expect that to necessarily keep up. It could. I mean, it very well could, depending on how big you are, how much weight you need to lose, how much exercise you do. Like, you could keep up those big numbers, but chances are you're not going to. But just trust the process. And that's something I really need to like tell myself, is because I get very impatient, like most of us do. We want results now. But you just have to trust what you're doing. If you're eating at a calorie deficit, if you're working out, keeping up the electrolytes, drinking plenty of water, things like that, the weight will come off. And the other thing, and this is maybe gonna come off a little bitchy, but the one thing that bothers me sometimes is someone who's super overweight like myself. My starting weight was 327. But when someone has a really high starting weight like that, they tend to drop weight super fast at the beginning. Or the weight just cuts off quickly, and people are just like, oh, well, I only lost this amount, or why aren't I losing that fast? Chances are your starting weight was a lot less than that person's, or a lot less than mine, or whatever the case may be. Don't compare yourself to anyone else or anyone else's journey. Their body chemistry is different. Maybe you have some medical issues going on that they don't, that makes you lose weight slower, or whatever the case is. Don't compare yourself to other people. I like made a post about that, which also relates back to my vlog, which I'll link up here, where I was talking about not comparing yourself to other people in their journey, because if you see them on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or Facebook, wherever you see them, you're only seeing, for the most part, the highlights of their journey, you know, the wins, the victories. And weight loss isn't always like that, but I hope this video was informative. I hope I didn't talk too fast, because I tend to do that when I'm nervous. Makeup videos, I'm not as nervous, but these were just me and the camera and I'm not wearing makeup. I tend to get a little more nervous. Now, those are my top 5 tips, advice, things like that when starting keto or when going keto. If you guys like this type of video, like keto specifically, give it a thumbs up and let me know. Subscribe if you haven't. If you have any requests, maybe you want to see more meals, maybe you have other questions about keto that you want answered, leave those down below and I will try to answer those in a future video. But yeah, thanks for watching and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.